There we go. And we're going to begin. So it's really an honor to be able to offer this service. I've been asked so many questions in the last couple of days. So before I start with the practices, I want to just give some information to everybody. Firstly, I am going to provide some advice based on speaking to some doctors, but I am not giving medical advice. Nothing that I'm offering is necessarily going to prevent anything, coronavirus, anything else, but is known to help strengthen the lungs. Now, I think it's useful to make everybody aware that we're starting to understand that the coronavirus, probably the worst aspect of it is that it causes this hyper-inflammatory response in the lungs. And being aware of that, based on what we now know, because the information constantly changes, I have been thinking about lots of things we can do to reduce pulmonary inflammation as a general rule, looking up different kinds of research, and of course, speaking to a variety of doctors. So, as I said last time, when I did this on Wednesday, vitamin D is known to reduce respiratory inflammation, so you want to get your vitamin D in. If you can go outside, you get that also from sunlight. It will synthesize through that process. But also you can take extra caplets of vitamin D. In addition, there is research that green tea is helpful in reducing overall inflammation. And foods that are associated with reduction of inflammation are those where you get your omega-3s. So if you have access to those now, I know that all of the supermarkets don't have everything we necessarily want. Do try and make sure your omega-3s are high. And lastly, exercise, if you are still healthy and well, is incredibly important. So one of the reasons that we get inflammation in our lungs is that the leukocytes, those are immune cells that are actually helping to support the lungs, specifically ones called neutrophils. They increase when we're unwell, and they can increase ad infinitum in relationship to certain pathogens. And we know that as we exercise, especially aerobically, we move neutrophils effectively through the body, and we help just globally to reduce levels of inflammation. So please do keep going with your yoga practice, your running, whatever you might do if you are usually exercising. It's super important. Now, on to other information to reduce inflammation. It's very interesting if we start to talk about the vagus nerve. I briefly touched on it on Wednesday, but I want to speak a little bit more about it because it plays a role in reducing inflammation, and it is active when we are breathing, very active. So the vagus nerve courses out of the medulla oblongata, and it moves throughout the entirety of the viscera. That's why it's called the vagus. It comes from the Latin word to wander. The vagus nerve courses through the entire respiratory tract, and it has lots of fibers, in fact, 80% of them that move from the respiratory tract up to the brain. That's why, because the vagus is also associated with relaxation, that we can use breathing to shift our state, right? Now, there's another piece of this that's really important. This nerve releases a special chemical, specifically a neurotransmitter. And one of the neurotransmitters it releases, and the primary one, is called acetylcholine. And we know that acetylcholine inhibits inflammatory factors. And just to be specific, pro-inflammatory cytokines. So when we breathe in slow, controlled ways, we activate the vagus specifically through sensory fibers in the pulmonary wall, right, so in the lungs, and that should help to reduce inflammation. Now, I'm not providing any promises, I'm simply talking about the physiological cascade. So in general, for all of us, doing slow controlled breathing is helpful in reducing inflammation, not to mention that it calms our minds, and we need something like this now. I've been getting a lot of questions about asthma. They've been coming to my inbox. So I just want to say this very briefly and then speak to everybody. For those of you who have asthma, there is this strange paradoxical relationship with relaxation in the lungs. And it is this. Usually when we are relaxed, many of the tissues in the body, especially the smooth muscle tissues, become more flaccid. So we would imagine, for example, that when we relax, the lungs become more open and more flaccid. But paradoxically in the lungs, that does not happen. Instead, during states of relaxation, there is actually a little bit of hardening. And the reason we believe this is the case is when we're really relaxed, we don't need as much oxygen to move through the lung wall, because actually we have higher natural saturation of oxygen because we're not using it as quickly. But it means that for those of you who have asthma, you need to be conscientious when doing these practices. One thing I suggest is simply lowering the respiratory rate. That will calm you down, but it will not cause the same level of tightening and will help with oxygen saturation. And yesterday, I worked with some doctors via Zoom at the COVID ward in Imperial. And so I've been, I guess, beefing up my knowledge base around this. I was helping them offering some mind-body practices. So those of you with asthma, stick with just slow breathing. Another thing that you can do if you have asthma is you can imagine inhaling from your nose to your toes and exhaling from your toes to your nose. The imaginal seems to somehow override that impact. Okay, so now for all of us. The primary technique that I think that we can all use is ocean breath or ujjayi breathing. And for those of you familiar with it, right, I taught it last time. And for everybody else that already knew it, can you just start engaging into ujjayi breath? Inhale and exhale twice the length of your inhale. The reason being is that the exhalation induces a sense of calm. So if you can do this now, while I teach everybody else how to do it that's new to it. So ujjayi breath sounds like this, right? I'm just going to do it on the exhale. We inhale naturally. Inhale naturally. That's it. Now, in order to make this noise, for those of us new to it, we're going to imagine that we're fogging up a mirror. So you can actually lift up your hand, look at your shiny, gorgeous reflection this morning. Inhale naturally and exhale. It needs to be slow, controlled, and as even as possible. Inhale. Let's do that one more time for those of us new. Lovely. Now, if you're new to it, rather than trying to force it out of the nose, because we do it from the nose rather than the mouth, and having a reverse sniff like this, I want you to place your two fingers, your index and middle finger, right at the center of your throat. I want you to inhale naturally and imagine exhaling out of the throat. It will make it much easier to make this noise. It might feel a bit awkward at first, but just continue. Inhaling naturally, exhaling your ocean breath through your throat. Remember, it's just through the nose. Okay. So we're all going to be doing this now for the next 3 minutes. And I'm going to be counting everybody to inhale naturally for a count of 3 and exhaling ocean breath for a count of 6. If you are well versed in ujjayi breath, when I say natural, you can inhale your ujjayi breath or your ocean breath. But for those of you new to it, please just stick to the exhalation. So let's all begin together. Eyes are downcast or closed. Let's come inward. I'm beginning now. Inhale naturally. 1, 2, 3. Ocean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale naturally. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Ocean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Ocean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Ocean. 1, 2, 3. Exhale. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Inhale. 1, 2, 3. Ocean. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Continue on your own counting so that I can speak to you. Make sure you count. If 3, 6 was too much of a push, scale back to 2, 4, or you can move up to 4, 8. It is so important, I cannot emphasize this enough, that you are not pulling or pushing your breath. If you pull it in or push it out, it ceases to be relaxing. Your lungs have all of these delicious sensory fibers in them. And those sensory fibers will pick up the intensity of the breathing. And if you push and force, you will indicate to your brain via your vagus nerve that you are actually in distress. So again, the breath must be smooth, the breath must be easy. Do not worry about getting to high numbers. Focus merely on keeping the breath smooth, keeping the breath subtle, keeping the breath light. We're going to practice for just one more minute, and I'm going to leave you in silence to do that. Count. Okay. So we're going to end the Ujjayi breath practice. And just as a reminder, if you weren't here in part 1, the value of Ujjayi breath in strengthening the lungs is manifold. First of all, it applies a little bit of extra pressure onto the lung wall, pushing the alveoli open, allowing for greater oxygen exchange, we believe, right? We don't know that definitively, but it aligns with our best physiological knowledge. At the same time, as I explained, there is the feedback from the vagus to the brain, and that extra added pressure, but done slowly and continuously, we believe is more relaxing than just doing slow breathing with an elongated exhalation alone. I want to provide another practice to help all of you to strengthen the lungs, and that is going to be what we often call in English 3-part breathing. I learned it as Durga breath when I trained in India, but you, if you practice yoga, may have it by a different name. It doesn't matter. So what 3-part breathing involves is inhaling in 3 little sips. You take in a little, you stop. You take in a little air, you stop, and then you take in a little air and you stop. In doing this, we allow a greater control in the respiratory tract of taking in and inhibiting, taking in and inhibiting, which already is slightly strengthening for the lungs. But once we get familiar with it in the next 2 or 3 minutes, we're going to add a little bit of gentle movement, which will allow it to really work into different parts of the lung wall. Now, again, for those of you familiar with Ujjayi breathing, you can do your little inhales with Ujjayi breath. For those of us who are new to Ujjayi, just take in natural breath. So it's taking in a little, and then taking in a little. I want you to almost imagine that you're pouring breath into your lungs when you're taking in a little. If you find the third taking in a little strenuous because you don't have that control yet to take in just a tiny bit, I want you to dial it back to 2, even though I'm going to lead you through doing it 3 times. So again, your eyes are going to be downcast or closed, and you can sit if you're knowledgeable with the Ujjayi. And following that, we're going to have a nice long Ujjayi or ocean breathing exhalation. This kind of practice affords us a greater ability to elongate the exhalation. So let's begin together. Take in a little, a little, a little. A nice long ocean exhalation. Take in a little, take in a little, take in a little. Nice long ocean exhalation. A little, a little, a little. Long ocean exhalation. Take in a little, just a little. Nice long ocean exhalation. Now I want you to practice this on your own for the next 2 minutes. And remember, if taking in the third sip is causing any strain for you, you will feel it in your upper chest, your shoulders, and the back of your neck. Please scale back to just taking it in twice. It must be subtle and light and feel easy. Keep going. Keep the mind on the breathing, on the Dirga breath. Okay, your last Dirga breath. And now I'm going to teach you how to use this to help strengthen the lungs more. Sorry, just talking a lot. So it's very interesting, and you can all test this, that if you lift up your left arm and stretch to the side, you will feel actually, if you take a deep, but don't take a strong, but deep, so you can feel it breath, it will move much more into the lifted lung. For us, it should be the left if you're following me. Put the arm down, and I just want you to see it on the right. So this is simply due to anatomical position. There's no magic in it. Now, if we use the Dirga breath while we are in such a position, what we do is we actually stretch out that lung a little bit more, which is really nice and healthy for it. If any of you struggle to keep your arm overhead, you can do it lying on the floor and just reaching your arm to the side, but it will be a little bit more powerful if it is overhead. But work within your capacity. That's true yoga, right? So let us bowl, lift up the left arm, right? Whether you're lying back and doing it, but if you're lying back, you need to stretch if you're on your back a little bit more. And we're gonna sit 3 times. Remember, if 3 is too much, scale back to 2. So a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Exhale long. A little bit, little bit, little bit. Exhale long. A little bit, little bit, little bit. Exhale long. A little bit, little bit, little bit. Exhale long. And one more time. Little bit, little bit, little bit. Exhale long. Brilliant. And release that arm. And we're going to do the other side now. So lift up your right. It's just 5 breaths on each side so that you know. And take in a little, a little, a little. Exhale long. Stretch strongly. A little, a little, a little. Exhale long. A little, a little, a little. Exhale long. A little, a little, a little. Exhale long. Last one. A little, a little, a little. Exhale long and release. Okay. Now, you can do an entire yoga practice where in all of the stagnant poses where the arms are lifted overhead, you do this dirga breathing. It's wonderful for the lungs. It's not traditionally done in classes, but as a yoga therapist, I teach it to people that have limited respiratory capacity to build it up. And I've been seeing it to be powerful over the last 13 years. You can also teach that. You can take these techniques. I want you to spread them around. And one of the benefits in general of yoga in terms of lung strengthening is that you take so many different positions where their lungs are almost, I could say in a weird way, contorted, and you're breathing in deep and breathing out, and you're stretching them in like every position they can be in. So if you do your asana practice, really focus on the breathing. And when I say deep, I don't mean intense. Remember, intense breathing is not relaxing. I mean deep, subtle, slow. Okay. So let us now end with a little bit of a meditation before the questions. Have your eyes downcast or closed. And just start to notice your natural breath. The breath that is not controlled. The breath that is naturally coming to you without any effort and passing. The beautiful, constant, life-giving breath. And notice the inhale as the inhale, the exhale as the exhale. Mentally noting this to yourself as you inhale, mentally note inhaling, inhaling. As you exhale, mentally note exhaling, exhaling. Just that. Inhaling, inhaling, exhaling, exhaling. It is so important, keep going as I chat, that we start to train our minds to reside on our breath and develop this faculty. There is so much future thinking right now, probably more so than normal, and it's always heightened for human beings. But we have the capacity, as we teach the mind to be with the breath, to come back to the here and now, the natural flow that is true, that is bare bones, that is real. And we do that simply by watching each breath and labeling it in our minds. And when thinking arises strongly, no matter what the thinking is, we can mentally note thinking, 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 and then return to the breath. So we highlight, so we see what our mind is doing rather than being caught up by it. I'm just going to continue this for another few minutes. And if you're noticing boredom or agitation or wanting not to do it, that's fine. That's part of the process. And actually doing it anyway at those moments is more important than doing it than when you're in love with your breath. Inhaling, inhaling, exhaling, exhaling, just this. Finding the discipline to keep bringing the mind back, to be willing to sit still, even if you'd like to move, even if you're thinking about other things you want to do this morning. And now I just want to send a well wish to all of you while you're still in meditation. Suffering is present for all of us. It is a natural part of life. Just be honest about the nature of your own suffering. You're not alone, but you can grow and transform through suffering. And I wish that to all of you, as well as that you are happy and peaceful, healthy and at ease, that you are able to take care of yourselves joyfully, and that you possess the wisdom, courage, and especially the determination to meet the challenges that you face now and in the future. Thank you so much for joining the lecture portion. It's going to become interactive. Now, there are going to be lots of you that have questions. There's a hand raising feature. And so that we don't have, oh, Veronica Green already knows how to use it. Okay, so I'm going to go down the list of hands. If you're unfamiliar with how to use the hand raising feature, it's at manage, it's at participants. You click on it and you will see on the right hand side the ability to do that. Also, just to let everybody know, I am going to be doing this again on Tuesday morning, same time. And also on Tuesday, I'm going to launch Rewiring the Anxious Brain Through Yoga for anybody that would like to come. That is going to be from 2 to 4 p.m. and it's £25. If you don't know anything about me, I have postgraduate education in physiology, neuroscience, psychotherapy, and Buddhist studies. So I'll be giving you practical tips for yourself and your students. I'll only be able to answer questions up till 8:45, so I'm going to take them in order. Veronica Green, please can you unmute yourself? You're first in the queue. Veronica Green?
Oh, right, I'm unmuted now.
There you are. Hi, Veronica.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Great, thank you, and for the other day as well. Now, can I ask a question? I work with a lot of children and teenagers, and all the training that I've had and the training that I give is not to have breath retention because they've got underdeveloped lungs. Not even so much breath retention, but no trying to control where their lungs develop. But I also have a lot of teenage asthma students, and this is wonderful. I know that we're not really holding the breath, we're just stopping slightly as we bring the breath in. Can I ask what your thoughts on that are?
I want to be honest in saying that I don't work with children, but I do know a little bit from a physiological perspective. So firstly, I agree with you, reducing the breath holding is very important in children. But doing reduced breath rate in children is fantastic for them. And the reduced breath rate you should be going for in children, according to my mentors, who I've worked with for 10 years that are clinical psychiatrists that use breathing, is 10 breaths a minute, inhaling for 3 and exhaling for 3. For teenagers above the age of 15 or 16, they should be fine with all of the practices, and I wouldn't worry about any of them.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
My pleasure. Okay, great. Megan Romley, you're next. Please unmute yourself. And If you can remute yourself, Veronica, please. Megan, you're up.
Hi, Heather. That was amazing. Thank you
My
for being so
pleasure.
clear and sharing so much with us, so much knowledge. I just wondered if you could quickly clarify about the asthma. I have a lot of students who have asthma, or their children, teenagers. And would you say that some of I know you explained it very well, what they should be focusing on: slow breathing, inhaling up, inhaling down. The rest of the practices you did, like the 3-part breath, should they possibly exclude that at this time?
What I would say is they can give it a go if they don't have acute asthma. And if they have, especially, I like to know for sure that people have the inhalers, just so that I have that sense of safety.
Right.
So a lot of people, because for example, I have asthma, but I have it only in relationship to smoke. And then I become completely asthmatic, and I can do all these practices. So I don't want to make a blanket statement. If somebody is wheezing, having problems breathing in as general rule, yes, none of these practices. But the good thing about them is in non-acute states, they can test these things, and it can be helpful for strengthening the lungs. The one that is the best is the special version of Kapalabhati I taught last time. That's fantastic for helping to mitigate asthma, and it can be curative in certain types of asthma. So unfortunately, I can't go over that again today, that technique.
Okay.
But I would say most of this is fine, but if anybody's struggling to breathe, just keep them with a slow breath rate. And if you want to test other things out, just make sure they have the inhaler. I can do a whole session, it'll probably be paid for though, about how to use breathing techniques with asthma sufferers, because that seems to be coming up constantly, and I can't give it its full iteration in such a short period of time, but I hope that's a little bit helpful.
Very helpful. Can you make the first recording available? Is that possible?
I think I screwed it up. I'll try, but I think I screwed up the recording. I'm getting better. I'll do my best.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Megan. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Lila, you're next. Please unmute yourself. Lila Mari. Sorry, I'm not saying your name correctly.
That's all right, don't worry. The 3-part breath, is that going to do with students that have COPD?
I would not do it with students with COPD. Ujjayi breath can be good with students with COPD though, especially because it kind of mimics the effect of pursed-lipped breathing that they're already going to be familiar with doing. They're taught that usually within respiratory clinics. However, if you are an early stage COPD, it's fine. And I wouldn't say that it's a contraindication, but I would say, because this isn't a yoga therapy training and I can't talk about all of the various different ideas and manifestations, that I would limit it because it can make them feel breathless. However, you can do some side stretches with trying to gently, gently, gently with Ujjayi breath, elongate the inhalation and exhalation. But I would stay away from Dirga breath unless you have extensive training in how to use that with these groups.
Perfect. Thank you. Appreciate
My pleasure. Thank you. Okay. Next on the list is Michael Hutchinson. If you can unmute yourself.
Yes, I'd just like to say you're doing such a great job here, Heather, and that one of the things is that it seems from what you've presented that you and I have been thinking and teaching very much along patterns. So I know you're very busy, but maybe we could communicate offline. I think there's a lot of sharing we could do on this. I would really want to support what you're doing. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. That's so kind. Yeah, and that would be great. I've been working to get everything together about 16 hours a day right now. But when that calms down, yeah, that would be wonderful. If anybody...
So I'm stuck at home trying to teach online.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you, Heather.
Thank you, Michael. If anyone else has a question, but...
Hi, Heather. It's Leah.
Yes, Leah.
I've got some questions from the comments, I think from people who potentially don't have working microphones. I've got 2 questions, if that's all right. The first one's from Bernie Sheehan. He has asked if you can do the arm raising exercise lying down with your knees bent.
You can, but if your knees are bent, please have them facing up towards the ceiling and not drawn in towards your chest. And if you do it again, Bernie, you really want to stretch nice and strong to the side so that you're receiving that benefit. But yes, you can do it. One of the added benefits of doing it like that with the knees up on the side is that you release any of the holding pressure in the transverse abdominis, and that's going to actually allow you to apply a little bit of extra pressure to the lower lungs, which is going to be great in your strengthening.
Thank you. And the next question is from Emma Nikolai, and she has asked how many times per day can you do the exercises?
Loads, but generally I would suggest that you break it into 20-minute blocks if you have the tolerance to sit there. So if you can do Ujjayi breathing for 20 minutes in a sitting, the impact on respiratory and lung functioning and the entrainment, that means they're kind of like starting to work together in this deep, deep relationship, becomes very strong. So if you can do 20 to 25-minute sessions, if you have the patience, that's fantastic. Whether it's Durga or whether it's Ujjayi breath without the Durga. And I would suggest that if you have the time, you do it 3 times throughout the day. But there's really no limitation. And then you can also adopt the Ujjayi breath with the inhale and elongated exhalation anytime you feel stressed. And just to go over, because I was asked to repeat this last time, so I'm going to say it. The reason that the elongated exhalation is so powerful for reducing stress is this vagus nerve, which is the major nerve of the parasympathetic autonomic nervous system, or colloquially we can say rest and digest. Its firing rate is heightened to your heart every time you exhale. And when it fires, what it does is it slows down your heart rate and the intensity of contraction. And then your body picks up that reduced heart rate as a sign and signal of relaxation. And it becomes this reciprocal spiral upward of inducing a sense of calm. So you can do that anytime you feel upset or worried. What's this? Can I please ask, with ocean breath, is the exhale twice the length of the inhale? It isn't always, but in the method that I'm teaching it here, it is. You can do it in any iteration. You could make the inhale longer. You could make the exhale longer. You can have them at the same length. But for the purposes of quickly inducing relaxation, you want to elongate the exhalation. Next time round, I'll teach some resiliency training where the inhale and exhale generally are the same length. Any other questions, or is that it? You can, oh, Lucy.
Hi, Heather.
Hi, Lucy.
So we've got,
Hi, Heather. Thank you very much for this. I just wanted to ask, while I was doing the Ujjayi breath, I felt very lightheaded.
Okay, so this can happen. Probably, are you new to it?
I'm not actually. I did the 8-week course at the Minded Institute, and I felt the same thing there too.
Okay, well, were you doing it on the inhalation and the exhalation, or just
On both, yes.
Okay, drop the inhalation generally, because we can have different reasons for the lightheadedness. But the most common reason is a slight level of pulling or sensitivity within the sinuses that pre-exist. And so that when you have that Ujjayi breath where there is a slight increased pressure within the sinus cavities, you get lightheaded. So see if you drop that, if it changes. Show up for another session and let me know.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Lucy Rosenstein, you're next.
Sorry, that was me.
Oh, that was you.
Yes.
Okay. Is there anyone else? Are we good? You can take yourself off the mic if you want to ask a question. Off the mute. No? Okay. I'm going to assume then that we're good. Please join me again Tuesday. I will always reiterate some vital points and continue to teach new things. And remember that there is the rewiring the anxious brain that's going to be happening Tuesday from 2 to 4. I can only have 40 people in that class. It's probably going to be most appropriate for yoga teachers and mental health or health professionals. So probably not for yourself, although you are welcome to join. And we will put that on our website so you can book through PayPal, because you will need to pre-book and be sent the link. For everybody else, I wish you a glorious day, and keep sharing and use this time for transformation. Namaste. Okay, take care. Thank you, thank you. Oh, lovely comments from all of you. It's really nice to feel this sense of community. I'm gonna just take you off mute for a moment, even though we're gonna have chaos with Rebirth. So if you wanna say anything out loud, you can.
Thank you.
That'd be great.
Thank you. Thank you, Heather.
Thank you so much, Heather.
Get on the BBC.
Well, tell the BBC. I don't tell the BBC.
Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good stuff.
Oh, I'm gonna mute
Thank you so much.
Eunice, you have one question, yes? If you can unmute yourself really quickly. I need to answer it in the next minute. Go ahead. Eunice? Eunice? No? Okay.
Another workout showing us how she remains fit and healthy.
Oh, go ahead, Eunice.
Hi, it's just if we want to do that course that you've mentioned, do we have to keep checking the website, or are you going to send us an email if we're on your email list?
We'll send it to the email list and it'll be on the website.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you say this was recorded?
It was recorded. It is recorded. We can still hear. I'm going to stop recording now.